Hi, everybody. I am Meredith Richmond. I am the membership secretary for MAPE Local 901. My pronouns are she, her. And today I'm going to be walking you all through our MAPE 101. This is our first ever statewide MAPE 101. And we found that we want just people to learn more about MAPE, learn more about unions, and kind of give a broad opportunity for folks to do that over the lunch hour. So first, we'd like to have people answer in the chat how long you've been in your MAPE represented position and what agency are you with. Oh, we have some newer folks, 4 weeks, a year and a half, 6.5 years, 7 years. Awesome, 6 years.
A lot of people with months.
Yeah, yeah. Maureen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maureen Dunaway. I am using she, her pronouns as well. I'm with DEED, Unemployment Insurance, and I am the statewide Meet and Confer Chairs speaker, which, we'll explain a little bit more about Meet and Confer later. Bye.
Yeah. And Maureen's helping us facilitate, and she's going to be monitoring the chat. So yeah, this presentation is for folks who are either new to MAPE and or have been with MAPE for a while, but maybe haven't been very involved and are union curious and want to learn more. So welcome all. Starting off, what is a union? We want to kind of baseline, like, what are we talking about? A union is a group of workers who come together often with the same employer to solve issues of mutual concern in the workplace and advance their common interests, such as wages, benefits, schedules, the terms and conditions of their employment, and they go about doing this collectively. You are the union. I am the union. We are the union. We believe having a collective voice improves our workplace and our ability to negotiate wages and benefits and working conditions. And it's really important to understand that a union is as good as the effort and energy that members contribute. A union's not really that different from any other large group of people who are trying to work together to achieve a shared aim or goal. Unions are not inherently super organized. They are not inherently super effective. It's the energy and effort that people put into the organization to make it powerful and organized and efficient and effective that makes our union great, And it's important to understand that unions have had a really big effect in what we consider normal working conditions in the United States and kind of broadly. Something like the 40-hour work week, that was something that unions in the United States fought for literally over 100 years. People in the union movement literally died in our effort to get a 40-hour work week. Because before then, it was bad. You'd be working like all your waking hours, basically, depending on how you survived in the world. Unions are also really strongly influenced that we have an 8-hour workday, that we get paid overtime. A big force in getting paid parental leave and having that be more common. MAPE was one of the first 2 unions in the state of Minnesota to negotiate paid parental leave. I remember at that time I was in a different union and we were all very jealous of MAPE, and the state asked me folks because they were the first union to get paid parental leave in the state of Minnesota. And now that is something that's going to be happening statewide here in less than a year. Unions are also in unionized workplaces. We have due process in how things happen. There's investigations and grievance. There's also just cause protections. And for some unions like us, we have pension programs, and unions have been a big force in having child labor laws be enacted and workers' compensation. So this is also an excuse to put in one of my favorite comics. So I hope you all appreciate a little bit of my Dino Comics humor. So, MAPE itself was established in 1980, and we have folks in MAPE almost every single job. We have folks from air quality specialists to zoologists. I work in the Department of Agriculture as a laboratory scientist. I do testing. I previously have done most of my testing of water samples, making sure like surface waters are not polluted. And I currently do feed and food analysis testing, making sure what's supposed to be in the food is in there, especially for livestock. We are one of the largest independent unions in the country. And overall, the state of Minnesota has about 75,000 employees, and we make up about a quarter of that at 18,000 MAPE represented workers. Now, how the heck do you organize 18,000 people? It's no small feat. Your union local is your main point of contact for your union. Everybody in MAPE is based on where they work, assigned to a MAPE local. The way this worked in the past is depending on where you worked, people booked the biggest conference room available. We ordered pizza, and we had a pizza lunch meeting over the noon hour, and that was our monthly union meeting. With the rise of telework, we are actually in the process of adapting, and we are in the next year or so going to be restructuring how we assign people to locals, but that is our current structure. Another important point to recognize in how we organize and how our union is structured is that we are a democracy. We are a self-governed democracy, governed by our members. So everybody who does things at the local level, all of those positions are elected. So we have a local president, local VP, local secretary, local membership secretary like me, treasurer, and community engagement officer. So in a given local, you might have workers in a bunch of different agencies. For example, in 901, we have Ag, Health, Minute. And it's important to there's a little bit of nomenclature in how we name things. So local, I'll jump up to that in a second. We have 39 locals. Our locals are grouped up into regions. So we have 21 regions. And our naming is that like region 9, we have local 901 and 902. So we have like number, and then like depending on how many locals we have, it's like 01, 02, 03. So for example, in region 13, they have 4 locals: 1301, 1302, 1303, 1304. Just so you have a sense of like why these things are called the way they are. And at the regional level, we have a regional director and a regional negotiations representative, both of whom are elected. The only position here on this slide that is not elected is stewards, and that is because we need as many stewards as possible. We'll talk more about stewards in a later slide, but they're a very important part of our union. At the statewide level, we are governed by a board of directors on a monthly basis. So each region has one director representing the people in that region. And they meet every month. Overall, we are governed by the Delegate Assembly, which is an annual gathering where like about 150 people elected from every local, representing the people in their local, gather and do things like vote on our annual budget and do essential statewide self-governance actions, like if we want to change our constitution in a certain way or take an important statewide stance in how we're like governing ourselves. That's where that happens. It's also extremely important to know about agency-based meet and confer committees. If any other folks have been in a different union before, you might know these as labor management committees. We call them meet and confer committees, and each agency has one, and it's where agency-based issues get brought to and resolved. So this is a group of people who meet regularly, a group of MAPE members who sit across and meet with the commissioners and HR in your agency, and on an equal footing talk about and try to resolve agency-based issues. So this is how we organize our 18,000 people. In Region 9, we have about 1,300 people. But it's not, some regions are smaller, some regions are bigger based on just how many people are in them. And yeah, that's how we organize our 18,000 people. And we have everyone across 23 agencies and boards and offices. So all across the state, we have workers. We represent workers all across the state. So it's really important to understand what distinguishes unionized employment from non-unionized employment. In the United States, only about 10% of people are in a unionized employed. 10% of workers in the United States are employed in a unionized position, and there's some very important distinguishing features in a unionized job. One of them is that you have a union contract that is legally protected, and the language codified in the contract can only be changed during negotiations. Another one is that we have that wage increases, benefits, and worker rights are advocated for as a collective. An important kind of jargony term you might want to be aware of is a CBA, or a collective bargaining agreement. It's just a fancy term for our contract, but you might come across that. Another really essential part of a unionized workplace that distinguishes it from a non-unionized workplace is stewards. Stewards do the informal and formal problem solving in the workplace, and they are the heart of our contract enforcement work. A contract is only as good as the enforcement, right? Like a parent can say, no cookies. But if the kid can just sneak into where the cookies are hidden whenever they want and grab a cookie, the no cookies rule doesn't really have any effect. Doesn't matter, right? So our contract is only good as what we enforce. And stewards are non-elected volunteers that help advocate. You become a steward. Every steward is trained by the union. So you go union steward training. We have a couple different levels. This picture here is from advanced steward training. And you get trained in our contract, people's rights, and how to do things like filing agreements, which is a very specific formal conflict resolution process. Stewards also make sure people know about their Weingarten rights, which is a term that means that everyone in a union has a legal right to union representation during meetings that you think might lead to discipline or affect your working conditions. So if you're ever called into a meeting with a supervisor or a manager and you're worried that it might result in discipline or affect your working conditions, you can ask to say, I'd like to wait until we can have a steward attend this meeting. It's a very important right to know about. In non-union employment, policies and procedures can be changed whenever an employer wants to change them, as long as it's not illegal. Another thing is that wage increases occur unpredictably and inconsistently at the discretion of management. Individuals can ask their supervisor, get performance-based raises or something else, but these can also be taken away, or promises can be unmet due to leadership decisions. It's really, pardon me. In either type of employment situation, you would probably, like the person, if you're wanting to raise your wages, you kind of go to the person who controls the budget, right? Who has authority over the budget? That's the person you'd want to like talk to about a raise, or someone who can talk to someone on your behalf about the budget and increasing your wage. In non-union employment, sometimes this means, going out to drinks with people you might not necessarily like after work and doing some schmoozing, or it might mean getting a certain project and knocking it out of the park and then making a case to management. And in unionized employment, we similarly go to the people who have control over the budget. But in our case, for us as state employees, those people are state legislators. So that's why we act collectively to approach the people who and that we try to organize ourselves to spend our time and energy effort that we might in private employment, you might do X or Y to try to get a raise. For us, we exercise that energy and effort towards our state legislators and in collective contract actions to help build our power and get a higher raise and improve our working conditions. And like I said in the last slide, policies and procedures can be changed at any time. So these things like expense allowances, leaves of absence, bereavement leave. These are all things in the non-unionized employment, are generally just kind of written up somewhere and maintained by HR and could be changed at any time. You know, like the CEO could say, we are no longer doing expense allowances, or your expense allowance for when you're traveling for work is now $20 instead of $40 because we're having budgetary issues and we need to tighten our belt. In a union, these are all things that you have to say in and that are codified in our contract. They cannot be changed unless it's done through our negotiations process. So those are some important distinctions between the unionized employment and non-unionized employment. You, through negotiations, have a say in increasing our vacation, having parental leave. That's something we directly did. What severance looks like, bereavement leave. Like we, in our last negotiation cycle, changed the language for our vacation policy. And as a result, a lot of people are now earning more vacation as a result of the negotiations we had in 2023. Similarly, there were changes in our bereavement leave policy to make it a bit better for folks. So those are all things that we have worked. Also, expense allowances, we improved them. We still want to improve them more, but those are all things that we have changed through negotiations, and we have a say in through that process. So this is one of our discussion points. Many of us have experienced challenging work environments. What's one thing about your last workplace that you would have changed if you could? Or if you've been at the state for a while, you can also say what's one thing you would change about your current position that you'd like to change if you could. I will wait until we get some comments.
Go ahead, Mega. That'll be.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the chat, but I didn't look at the hands. Megan,
No worries. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So one thing that was just a bit frustrating and annoying was having to always input my time on a little timesheet at the end of every couple of weeks, even though I was salaried. And, you know, I can understand that for like sick time or vacation time or what have you, but yeah, it's it's kind of a little detail that tends to kind of go by the wayside for me, at least.
Totally. Mike says he pleads the fifth. Yeah, Becca says in the private sector, she had lots of issues with being expected to work outside of her designated time, so like unpaid overtime. Reasonable health insurance. Minimal wage increases. Akira would like to allow for permanent out-of-state remote work. Yeah. At Michael's old job, watching bosses receive double-digit raises while everyone else received just a cost of living adjustment, which might not have been the actual cost of living adjustment given inflation was in the double digits for quite a long time in the past 5 years or so. So yeah, these are all things we hope to we can use our union to address. We have a say in our workplace through our union. If there's something you'd really like to change, there's a process that exists to change it. Oops, dang it. I went away from my slide. There we go. Yeah, POD talks about working 50 to 60 hours a week. So one thing about MAPE is we're only as strong as our members. If we pitch in together, we can fight together for better working conditions. So this is the part of the presentation where I'm going to ask everybody, if you are able, if you have a browser handy, go to mape.org on an internet browser. So it's really important to know we have a website, and we have a lot of resources on our website. One of the most commonly used resources is to find your local. So unless you're have only been here for about 4 weeks, we generally we update the database every 2 weeks. If you type your name if you go to the top right corner of the website and then go to locals and then click find my local, you have a section where you type in your name, click the red search button, and then you come to a page that is the information for your local. These people who are listed on your local's website are your circle of support at MAPE. These are all of the people who have stepped up to fill positions and to help our union exist, really. Your steward, your regional director, your regional steward director, all of the stewards, your local officers. These are the folks you can turn to for support in your workplace and who are doing the work to help make the union exist in your little chunk of the world, in your little chunk of your workplace world. It's really important to know how to find those people and to know at least what local you're in, and be able to connect with that key point of information and plugging into the union. Another really essential part of our website is our contract. I really highly encourage folks to read our contract. It's very long, but at least reading through 1 or 2 sections is really good. The vacation section, the sick leave section are pretty easy to read. They're not very long, and they're probably the 2 sections that I think people use and refer to the most. So it's very good to at least have looked at the contract before. Yeah, it's a very vital resource. Article 6, employee rights. If there's one thing I want people to get out of this presentation, it's knowing how to find the contract and knowing how to find your stewards. So that's what we're going to next, is under the same heading of locals. If you go to the one below, find your local, you can find your stewards. So your stewards are listed on your local page, but you can also directly find a list of your stewards through this web page. So you type your name in. If you know your local, select your local and then click apply. And a list of your stewards will come up. These are the people you can turn to, pardon me, for informal or formal help. They're the people who, like, even if something you're not sure, you don't have to be definitely sure something's a problem before you talk to stewards. Like, you can talk to a steward to find out if something's a problem, or to just get like informal help about a thing that you think is going on that like doesn't feel right, doesn't seem right, or that you're just having issues with. Stewards are there for you. The website also has a bunch of our events posted on the website. So if you go to mape.org and scroll down, we have a listing of events. It's important to note that not all of our meetings, not all locals put their meetings on the website. So here you see like Local 501 has a bi-monthly meeting, Local 601 has a meeting. Not all locals do that though. A lot of locals also send out just by email or Outlook invite. That's how they communicate when their meetings are to the folks in the local. So be sure to keep an eye on your email inbox. That's the most reliable way to find out when your local is meeting. But there's also a bunch of other things that will be on the website. Like coming up next Tuesday, we have the Fund Our Future rally at the Capitol. That's something that's on the website. You can find all the details for the website. And like this meeting was also on the website as an event on the website. So it's a good resource to know what's going on, what things are happening. There's also the MAPE newsletter. The statewide MAPE newsletter is sent out to everybody in MAPE, everyone who is represented by MAPE, all 18,000 people. The statewide MAPE newsletter has information relevant to the entire bargaining unit, members and non-members. And it's distinct from any local specific communication you might get, which is tailored to your local, not statewide things. Everyone is automatically subscribed to the MAPE newsletter. You can ask to be unsubscribed. Note that there's 2 different lists maintained, one for MAPE at the statewide MAPE central list of like everybody that this goes to, and there's separate lists that are maintained at the local level. Also know that everybody in MAPE who works with any kind of member data signs a data privacy agreement. Like I have signed the data privacy agreement. Everyone I work with who handles member information signs a data privacy agreement. And MAPE does not sell any of our information. We strictly keep that information so that we can communicate with the people in our bargaining unit. Yeah. So I've talked a little bit about members and non-members. It's important to understand the difference between the two. So the entire unit, 18,000 people, is what we call the bargaining unit. And the bargaining unit is the entire pie, and it's made up of members and non-members. Those are the 2 distinct parts that the bargaining unit is divided into. The whole pie, all 18,000 people in the bargaining unit, are represented by MAPE. They're covered by our contract, can participate in local meetings, and can get help from stewards. So all 18,000 people can get help from their stewards. All 18,000 people can participate in our local meetings. Something to note, if you've been in a union before, that might be a little different. A lot of other unions only let members participate in local meetings. Everyone can participate in our local meetings. Non-members is your default status when you're hired on. So you're hired on as a state employee. You're initially, like day 1, you are a non-member. That means you're not paying dues. And as a result, you don't have a say, and this is your default status in the union. Members join MAPE, pay dues, and therefore have a say in our contract, how we operate, and if we were to go on strike. The more members we have, the more power we have. Just imagine if you're an employer who's negotiating with a union. If you're negotiating with a union that has 50% membership, you're going to negotiate differently than a union that might have 90% membership. You're just going to act differently at the negotiations table. It's important also to note that members are basically our only source of resources for our union. It just fundamentally costs money to do things. And our bargaining unit is made up of people who either pay nothing or pay something. And we are able to do things like have an office, have staff, have professional organizers from the resources that members contribute to the union. I kind of liken it to if you're living in a house together with other people, if you're not putting in towards rent, you're not going to have a say in when the house meetings happen. But if you are paying in towards rent, you have a say in like, okay, we need to call a house meeting. Members are the base of our democracy. Members have a vote in our elections. You need to be a member to be an officer of the union. Yeah, and that's why when I say you don't have a say or you do have a say, members have a say in our union. So I talked about dues. Dues are calculated using your effective hourly rate, whether you're exempt or non-exempt. It's 75% of 1 hour, or about 45 minutes of your hourly rate. Paid biweekly with a cap of $34. So if you are making $40 an hour, 75% of $40 an hour would be $30, and you'd be paying $30 at each paycheck. We have dues calculator on the website if you want to calculate that. I also like to mention that our dues are actually pretty competitive. Dues and unions broadly across the nation are generally 1 to 2% of gross wages, and ours come out to about 0.93%. So on that scale, our dues are pretty competitive. Not that it's a competition, but this is how we do things. If everyone pitches in a little bit, then we can accomplish big things. So how do you become a member of MAPE? On our website, in the top header, we have a header that says Join MAPE, and there's a 3-part form to join MAPE. The first part is filling out your name, your address, basic information. The second part is a dues deduction authorization. Our dues are paid through payroll deductions off of our pay stub, just like your health insurance or your short and long-term disability. The alternative to that is writing a check to the union each year, which is a bit more of a pain. But to have that money be routed to the union, we need a dues deduction authorization, so payroll can process that. And then the last part of the sign-up form that we have is an optional contribution to our political action committee. MAPE has a political action committee that is like a legally separate arm of our union, and they do a lot of really important work, especially as we are state workers. You can contribute a little bit to help them do the work that they do, but that is optional. Scroll down to the bottom, submit application, and you are a member of MAPE. There are a couple benefit notes that I really like to make sure everybody knows about. I'm really personally into making sure everybody is able to take advantage of every cent of their benefits. One of them is vacation. You can apply for vacation service credit if you have relevant work experience. So for vacation purposes, we all have a separate tenure clock. It's like our vacation clock. For me, because of the vacation service credit, I started with the state in 2021, but due to the vacation service credit, I'm earning vacation as if I started with the state in January of 2013. So they basically calculate to the day how much relevant work experience you have, and they move your effective start date back. So this way, if you're maybe like a mid-career or late career professional, you're not starting right at the bottom of earning 4 hours of vacation. Your relevant experience counts, and you can come in earning more vacation. It's a very simple process. Each agency administers this benefit differently, but pretty universally, just email your HR department. There's probably a general HR email, and just say, I'd like to apply for the vacation service credit. They'll probably just ask for your resume. You might have to estimate your start and end dates because they do calculate a specific date. It's like January 13th for me, I think. And then on that date, on your anniversary, you get bumped up at like the certain years. Oh, yes, that is only for vacation accrual. We're only talking about vacation service credit and vacation accrual. Yeah, so you can be earning more vacation if you apply for the vacation service credit. And you want to make sure this is happening. Some HRs have been kind of better and kind of automatically doing it for people recently, which is cool, but it doesn't automatically happen. Our contract does not say that, so that is not what HR does. So it's good to know about. The other, after that, is retirement accounts. There's 2 retirement account things that are really important to emphasize to people. Yes, and also for younger employees, even if it doesn't bump you up, so like if you have 1 year of relevant experience, that just means that gets added and you'll bump into the next level of accrual a little bit, like a year sooner than you would have otherwise. So even if it doesn't immediately start changing how much you accrue, it means you move to the next level sooner. So in terms of retirement accounts, something that we have is a healthcare savings plan. This is the spiritual kind of successor to this. Is it used to be that a lot of unions, if you were a unionized worker and you retired, you got to keep your healthcare plan. So you retired and you got employee healthcare. This fell out of a lot of union contracts in the early 90s, but now we have this healthcare savings plan. So 1% of our pre-tax earnings goes into this account, and the point of it is to reimburse us for our healthcare expenses after we retire or separate from service. So it mitigates some of that financial impact of all the medical care that we need as we get older, and especially that's the case often when we retire, that there's just more medical expenses. The thing that's important to note about this is that the money's automatically put into the account, but it's not automatically invested how you want it to be invested. It goes into a money market account, but this is an investment account. So you can put it in low risk stocks, high risk stocks, a mixture of stocks and bonds. I like to just make sure people know they exercise their option, their choice, because it really stinks to realize, like, check this 10 years down the line and realize, oh, I wanted this, I wanted this to be invested in like super high risk markets, and it's just been in a money market. Some people, though, might want to just totally keep it in a money market. That's totally fine, but I want people to know that they have that option and to flag that it's really easy to forget about that. If you want to change it, you can go to MSRS Contact Us or log into your MSRS account. You can change it once if you've set up your online MSRS account, you can change it in the platform there. It's also really important to note that we have an annual $250 match for deferred compensation. Deferred compensation is basically like a government 401k. This is a really good incentive for just putting a little bit of money into your deferred compensation. You can change this in employee self-service. So if you put, I think the minimum amount you can put in per paycheck is $10. And so if you do that minimum, you'll get that annual deferred comp match. For sick leave, it's really important to know that there's a lot of different ways to use your sick leave. It's probably more broad than a private non-unionized job you've had in the past. Also, your sick leave, when you retire or separate from service, the value decreases. It's transferred at retirement. It's transferred at 40% of its value into your healthcare savings plan. So it's just important to know that there's a lot of different ways to use it, and it's most valuable to you while you're actively working. And lastly, it's important to know that you're FMLA eligible after at least 1,250 hours of work over 12 months. This is especially relevant for parental leave. There have been cases where people might have given birth within their first year of working with the state, and unfortunately they didn't qualify for paid parental leave like they would have otherwise. So it's just something I like to flag for people who might be thinking about that it's important to note that the FMLA eligibility has some restrictions as a newer employee. So there's a lot of stuff I've just talked about, and I hope you've seen that it takes a lot of different things to have a union be working. And I'd like to ask people to put into the chat while I kind of talk through this slide. Put in the chat, put in the chat, because I'm going to be talking through it. What are some things you're good at or that you like doing? Please put that in the chat. The union is a really great place to exercise your values and act on your values, act on the things you care about. If you care about justice or equality or transparency, solidarity, accessibility, community, those are all values that are really alive in a union. And if you're good at listening or writing, if you're good at finding out information, if you're just good at mailing stuff, if you like mailing stuff, if you're into being welcoming and making sure you always introduce yourself, if you're good at finances and spreadsheets or running meetings or anything else, really, these are all things that can really contribute to making our union stronger. Whatever your skills are, there's a space for you in that skill and what you can bring to our union. So some examples of roles that different ways people can plug into our union is just being an engaged member. Reading our emails is actually incredibly valuable. It can be, as I think any of us know, it can be really hard to get people to just read your emails and know what's going on. So if you are just an engaged member who keeps up to date with reading emails from MAPE, reading the minutes, you might not be able to attend your local meeting, but reading the minutes from the meeting That's like extremely valuable to just kind of know what's going on and be listening to the information that we try to like spread to our representatives, the members and non-members in our bargaining unit. Stewards, we need as many stewards as possible. Contract action team members, those are folks who help us collectively take action during negotiations. So helping us all show up at the governor's house or helping us all write a letter to the governor. Those are really important roles. Meet and confer committee member. Each agency has one. We need people on that to help us do the work. Delegate for delegate assembly, representing your local at the statewide level. There's a million different ways people can plug in. And it doesn't also have to be a named position. For example, you can just help your local run an event. We had somebody in January just help, like he was like, I want us to have an in-person event. And we're like, okay, can you help us plan a donuts thing at the office? And he helped us plan a donuts thing. There's any number of ways that, like also like mailing stuff. A lot of locals like to try to mail stuff out to people who become members, mail them a t-shirt. I personally would love to do this, but I don't have the time to mail that stuff out. And I like asked for people to help out with that for a while and no one was really able to, but that is really like, it'd be really important to help people get a MAPE t-shirt and to like thank them for becoming a member. So I'm gonna go steward. One thing, you can totally attend steward training without committing to be a steward. Even just learning more about the contract is cool. You don't have to commit to being a steward. It's a great opportunity to learn more about our contract. Active listening, mediating conflicts, activism, relationship building, facilitating meetings. That's awesome, Mega. Paul, graphic design, justice, community, audio engineer, that's valuable. Print industry, we definitely do a lot of printing. Caring is a really big part. Just like we all participate because we care about each other. That's kind of solidarity, like the heart of solidarity. Taking notes, we always need people to be taking notes about our meetings. Showing up, that's very powerful. Yay! That's awesome, Mega. Helping with mailing. If you're ever in the Capitol complex, I have like about 100 t-shirts under my desk, but you can also just reach out to your MAPE local and they can help you get a t-shirt. Yes. So it's also important to know kind of the timeline of some key processes we have in any given year in our union. On a biennial basis, we have negotiations and there's a lot of important time, like it's a very important time to plug into our union, advocating changes, participating in actions. We have Lobby Day coming up March 6th. That's a very, very important action to be participating in, talking directly face-to-face to the people who have control over our agency's budgets, voting on our tentative agreement, which is what we call our contract before we voted on it. On an annual basis, Lobby Day and Delegate Assembly are kind of the two most important days in the year. Lobby Day is in March 6th coming up when we talk to our legislators about funding our agencies. Delegate Assembly in October is our core self-governance, like biggest, most important self-governance activity. We vote on our budget, our whole entire organizational budget at Delegate Assembly. On a monthly basis, most locals have monthly or bi-monthly meetings. Attending your monthly meeting or reading the minutes from our monthly meeting, very great. And a weekly level, if you're like really going and get it, like me, stewards and local leadership, those are folks who put in time every week to help make sure our union works. So lastly, we are on our basically last slide. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, yes, we have a survey about this presentation. This is the first of a thing that's going to be a monthly thing statewide. So we'd really love your feedback. And also just love to hear like what's one thing you took away from this? What's one thing you'd like to learn more? So if you'd be willing to take that survey, please take the survey. If there's something we can improve in this presentation, we really want to know. if there's no questions, I'd really love to hear if there's one thing you learned in this presentation that was really valuable to you or that you didn't know before. Yeah, Mega.
How to get involved, or the different roles that you're looking to fill, or groups to join, things like that. That was a big question that I had because I am a new member. So thank you so much for that.
Awesome. Org chart. Important becoming a member. How big we are, yes, and how we're organized. Yes, meet and confer is agency-based. And we're going to have a 201 level, like we're compiling topics. There's a lot more statewide committees. So that's like a 201 level topic of all of the statewide committees MAPE has behind the scenes doing a lot of work. So meet and confer is how we solve agency-based problems. An example from the ag agency, since I'm an ag, is a lot of the ag folks were like, there's this big push to have electric cars, right? But the ag folks that drive hundreds and hundreds of miles all across the state, they're having issues with not having charging stations available to them in all of the rural and remote areas that they work in. So that issue came up, was brought to the ag meet and confer committee, and the people on the committee, the MAPE members on the committee, talked with the commissioners and HR, and they're like, yeah, well, this is a problem, and now the people who do that work have access to regular old gas cars instead of electric cars. Not all problems can be solved at meet and confer, but it's kind of the first step in trying to solve a given agency-based problem. So yeah, it's just a group of MAPE members talking about agency problems with the leaders of an agency or board. I recognize that not everyone works in an agency. So that's something that's in progress right now. We won in our last negotiation cycle. We established a pathway for money to go down for student loan reimbursement. And now we're working at the agency by agency level with the meet and confers to try to get each agency to fund that student loan reimbursement, because now that actual funding of the reimbursement needs to happen at the agency level. So it's something that a lot of meet and confer committees are discussing. And some have been successful, and it's really awesome. They also negotiate the supplemental contract. So if there's some things that we need to negotiate directly, just applies to your agency, that happens there. All right, well, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, Teams me, also reach out to any of the folks in your MAPE local that you can look up on the website. They've all volunteered to have these positions because they care about helping other folks in the union. So they're there for you. They really want to hear your questions and help you answer them, because that's why they're in that position. So with that, I'll end it. I hope everyone has a really good rest of their Wednesday. And thank you for attending our first ever statewide MAPE 101 presentation.